Hey, hello. Welcome to episode number 103 of the People We Love podcast. I am Adam Choit. What's up? If you're new here, what I do is interview people from all walks of life, most often comedians and other artists about their lives and careers. It's casual conversation, but I also ask everyone to highlight someone they love, someone who they admire, who influenced them, inspired them, or supported them. For more, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. That's peoplewelovepodcast.com, and the Instagram handle is at peoplewelovepodcast. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Adam Choit if you want to follow me. And please remember to tap subscribe or follow on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And of course, 5-star positive reviews on iTunes are greatly appreciated as well. So, today's guest, producer and comedian Red Jefferson, stubbornly disliked school as a teen and only really cared about comedy and becoming a professional wrestler. The legend Mick Foley was always Red's favorite, and not just for being a great wrestler, but Red also loved Mick for the person he was as well. Mick Foley has never let Red down, but Red's journey took him away from his wrestling pursuits and more into comedy. And to Austin, Texas, and to LA, into film producing, podcasting, and even working on Two Cute Brothers, a show with his brother and also recent guest of this podcast, Jason Redlitz. But let's just get into it. Here's Red Jefferson. So it's good to see you today, Red Jefferson. Thank you for joining me on this Zoom here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. How are you holding up during 2021 or whatever year it is now?
Sure. Fair to Midland. I feel like I have it. Thank God for unemployment. Lord, that thing's saved my butt. It's been fine. There's been people who had a lot worse than I did. I started getting I feel like I'm doing more creatively during COVID than I was maybe the year 2019, honestly.
Yeah, maybe is it you're doing more creatively or you're just doing different things? It forces you, I guess, to because you're confined.
It's forcing me to do more creative things at home, which I feel is more work. Like the creative stuff I do outside, when I was allowed to go outside, was like doing stand-up and getting my reps in and things of that nature, meeting people, networking, and like hanging out at comedy places, maybe going to a class, maybe getting gigs. But now I'm kind of focusing everything at home where I'm writing, I'm editing, I'm doing more of the mechanical type of work that I should have been doing when I was out and about. So I feel like I'm definitely doing more work, like hard work, than I have been before when I was just hanging out doing shows, because that doesn't feel like work.
I see. No, that's good that you're applying yourself, and I'm trying to do a little bit of a similar thing on my end as well, for sure. But we can get into your life. Of course, I interviewed your brother Jason a few weeks ago. I could see maybe not the resemblance. I'm not really good at that game, but the energy and sort of the tone and how you guys speak, I could kind of see that. You guys both seem like upbeat, positive dudes. Is that
boisterous, obnoxiously loud? Yeah, sure, all those things.
No, you see, you guys just like to joke around and be
bold voiced, strong-headed.
You guys are both too nice to the point of a fault. Is that true? I'm like sort of guessing.
He's nicer than me. He's a nicer boy. I've been hardened. I've been hardened.
Why have you been hardened? I think I was going to guess the superficial reason.
What's the superficial reason? Give me the superficial reason.
Because he has more hair.
Oh, he does have more hair. I gave up.
So you're more. I know. I did see something about you giving up on hair. A joke somewhere.
No, bald and loving it.
Yeah, on one of your profiles.
Yeah. I gave up. Like at 23 years old, I wasn't even losing hair at that point. I knew I was. I knew, I guess I had to have been losing hair to know I was. So I knew that it was going to be bad eventually. And so at 23 years old, I was just like, screw it. I don't want to deal with this nonsense. I didn't even like hair. I didn't like getting my hair cut. I got it twice a year. I let it grow out until it was gross. And then I got a crew cut, then grow out until it was gross, and then got a crew cut. Then I just started shaving it, and I've never felt so happy and free. I'm faster. I'm more aerodynamic. I dry off in the shower in record time. It's perfect. It's really, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's one less thing you have to worry about ever. It's a delight.
Is there any of that stuff in your act? The pros of being bald or the embracing being baldness?
I've wanted to. I used to have a show called Thunder Talk Live where I just take a topic and just rant about it. And I'd have other comics come on rather than do their act. They just rant about one topic. And one time I ranted about being bald and I talked about this then, but that's the last time I brought bald up on. Well, I brought bald up on stage, but not to this effect.
A bit, not like a whole bit or a whole thing or anything.
I should honestly, because it's great. And I think more people should do it. It's the future. I really think it.
Yeah. I mean, what you were just describing sounds like a well thought out, articulate take that there might have been something there. I was kind of like chuckling a little bit. I'm like, this sounds funny, even though he's not really trying to be funny or make jokes. But why don't you tell me about from your perspective, of course, because you grew up in New Jersey with 4 other siblings, if I recall correctly.
4, yeah. And
all of their names start with the letter J.
Yeah, except mine. Isn't that crazy?
Well, sort of. We can talk about that.
No, we can. We could talk about that. Well, yeah, we're all J names. And my real name's Jeff. So my name's Jeff Redlitz. And when I was doing sales, I was doing phone sales in New York, maybe 6 years ago. And everyone's called me Red my entire, throughout high school and college. People give me a nickname Red because my last name, Redlitz. And when I was on the phones doing phone sales, I'd leave voicemails and I kept hearing Jeff Fredericks, Jeff Regricks. They're just misspelling it, mispronouncing it. And my boss is just like, why don't you just go by Red Jefferson? And that it was just a perfect name. It was a joke. So I started going on the phones as Red Jefferson. And then I started doing it for comedy. And I think it's a funny name. I'm still Jeff Redlitz legally by law, but Red Jefferson's just a funny name to me. It makes me very happy.
I guess it's funny. By the way, how you describe that, it's funny. I'm just like, I was able to follow the method to the madness. You know how you came
flip and reverse it.
Yeah, don't overthink this. Don't overthink this too much. But what about what do you remember being a young kid, 5, 6 years old, in a household of all the J people and those days? What jumps out at you?
Yeah, it's nothing. It really jumps out. I know no other way. It was crowded. It was very crowded. Not a lot of privacy growing up. We lived in a smaller house. There was like a 3-bedroom with 7 people living in it. At some points, 8 people living. Our grandma lived with us. So, and 3 bedrooms, that's a little tight. So it was a lot of privacy, not a lot of, 3 boys in 1 bedroom. So it was cozy. It was cozy, but we didn't really know any other way. So it wasn't a bad thing. I'm glad for how close our family is now than when I see other people who don't have that close of a knit family. We had to be close.
Literally.
Yeah. We had no choice.
Do you remember that being, tough at times? Like, where you did not like your brothers? You're like, why won't these people, why do they have to be here right now? Or why do I have to be here? Did you feel like, or was it just all you knew?
No, sure. I think I feel it. I didn't know it then, but as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh, I crave my alone time. I crave my privacy. Like once I'll notice myself if I'm staying over a place where there's other people living there too. Like say if I'm on a vacation when I'm spending time at someone else's house or something like that, or I'm staying with my family now, I'm just like, oh, I just need to go back to my space, my private space. I just crave it. And at the end of like 4 or 5 days, I'll get an Airbnb. Like I need to get out usually.
Yeah, I think I'm becoming a little bit the same way for sure. What about what were you into when you were, a young kid, elementary school, that aged, as far as hobbies, interests, sports, art, what were you, doing?
Wrestling and comedy. I always loved.
And nothing has changed since then.
Nothing's changed. I've stuck with those two, and neither have let me down. Well, the comedy's let me down plenty, but wrestling hasn't let me down. Wrestling's been true and pure. But comedy. I was always a big, Will Sasso, John Candy, Chris Farley, that crew. And wrestling, I was just Mick Foley all the time. He was my guy. He's my hero. Still is my hero just because he's someone that's like hitting it, going close to his 60s and hasn't let me down. You know, that whole thing where, never meet your heroes. Like, I met him a couple times and he's just the nicest guy. So pleasant.
Yeah, I was just going to say people pick the wrong heroes. I think that's part of it.
It's not their fault, when they're kids, they just pick the person they like the most, so then they pick their heroes. They're just like, wow, I want to be like this person. And then 2-3 years later, they say something just so stupid. Mick Foley has been so good and has been on the right side of history throughout. I'm just so pleased. I couldn't have been happy with the hero I chose when I was younger.
Is that when you discovered, I guess, both of those things, comedy and wrestling, and Mick Foley too, when you were a young kid? Because I guess kids obviously appreciate comedy and all kinds of comedies. And even if you don't understand all the jokes or understand everything that's going on, even in a pro wrestling match, you still appreciate and can enjoy. So is that kind of like that young you were into all that stuff?
I guess when I started becoming interested in anything was around like 9, 10.
Right. But you understand it more.
Yeah, towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s. So then that's when I started watching Mad TV and I started watching wrestling. And those were my two things, Mad TV and wrestling. And Simpsons, of course. Yeah.
So for your wrestling era, it was the WWE Attitude.
Yeah, it was the Attitude era.
The tail or the middle tail end of sort of the Attitude era. So you're all the Rock, Stone Cold, and Mick Foley, the Undertaker. Is that your favorite era?
That's my coming up era. Is it my favorite era? My favorite era is right now, honestly.
Is it right now? We have to get into that. Let's talk more Mick Foley for a little bit. Yeah. But I want to get into, because I don't follow it, so I'm always curious to hear from other people. Like, what would it take for me to get sucked back into the current wrestling?
I have one company to tell you about that. AEW, All Elite Wrestling. It's a new company.
I've seen their ads or something like that.
That's the thing that'll get you sucked back in.
I believe it's possible because I've been into it at times, for sure throughout my life. But what was it about Mick Foley that made him your favorite of all? I guess of all time, but especially during that era when you're really starting to get into it more.
Because I was like a husky kid. I was a husky kid growing up, and I always liked the fat guys. I loved my Will Sasso. I loved my Chris Farley. I loved my Mick Foley. I like the fat guys who, like in comedy, make you laugh, and in wrestling, beat you up. Like, I thought it was like, I always loved the big guy. In playing video games, whenever there's a guy with an axe or a club, I'm that guy. I'm the guy that's the tank in the game, or I'm the guy that's the brawler in the game. I've never been someone that's a bow and arrow. You've never been a long range person. I've always been the big tough guy in the front.
Just because it's sort of like not your physical type, but of like
it's my physical type. No. It's because of that. Like, it's because
I was going to say one you identify with the most, but not even if not exactly.
No, I wanted to be the big guy. Like, I tried to get fat as a kid. I wanted to get fat because I was just like, I'm going to be like Mick Foley and Will Sasso, make people laugh, and I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to be a chubby wrestler. I was my goal.
And what did your family and friends and people around you say to you when you told them, I want to be not just a wrestler, a fat wrestler or chubby wrestler?
Well, they didn't know all of that. They just knew I wanted to be a wrestler. My parents were fine as long as I left the house. Throughout the entire thing, they just had too many kids. They had too many kids. So as long as I wasn't, overtly using drugs or doing anything that's going to cause police attention, they were fine with me just having whatever thoughts I wanted. My friends, some of my friends want to be wrestlers too. So we kind of embraced each other. We embraced the fact that we wanted to both become wrestlers.
Dude, all male comedians want to be wrestlers. Is that sexist?
No. I think all female wrestlers. I think there's a crossover there. I think there's a crossover with women's comedians in wrestling. I think it's comedy
too.
Well, women's wrestling is amazing right now. It's the best. It's the best. It's the best thing going right now, honestly. The best wrestling's coming from women today.
What makes the women's division? I guess we can get into some nuts and bolts wrestling. What makes the women's division so popular today?
Well, it depends on the company, of course. But that being said, it's because they're hungrier. They're hungrier. The men's divisions are over flooded with men that have kind of, wrestling has always had a standard of what they look for with men. You'd be big and tall, but with women, it's always been very narrow. It's been you have to be an athletic 10, an athletic 10. So they want you to look like a 10 and be somewhat athletic, and that's all they care about. They want you to be their 10 but athletic.
Is that wrong? Is that wrong?
Because the fun of wrestling is the different sizes, the different shapes, the different looks. How boring would it be if every male wrestler looked like The Rock? It would be terrible. It would be so boring. But they have people like The Undertaker, and they have The Big Show and Rikishi, and they have all these different sizes, shapes, everything. But with women's wrestlers, it's always been one size, and they didn't care whether you wrestled or not. They didn't give a shit. They just wanted you to be eye candy. Now the floodgates have opened where now women are allowed to be any shape and size that they want in wrestling. And also they're valued for their wrestling ability, which is something that's never happened before. Like 7-8 years ago, if you asked a WWE producer what they thought of women's wrestling, they'd be probably like, I don't give a shit. I really don't give a shit. And these are people who work in wrestling.
It was a novelty on the card, basically.
Yes, 100%. And it was treated like a novelty. Exactly that, like a popcorn match, a time to get up and go grab your snacks before the other shows. Now it's the main event. It's just as good, and they're hungrier for it because they got the spotlight and they don't want to let go of these women's wrestlers. So now they're doing stuff we don't usually see. We're having harder hitting matches. It's really great. Really great.
Oh, that's cool. I guess because there's such a long, not that there's not a history of women in wrestling either, but there's such a history to draw from in terms of like developing characters. It's just, I guess a lot of these characters, and maybe that's why I'm not into it, because there isn't sort of a superstar, at least from my view, out there to latch onto from a cultural sense. But the men seem like they're, I guess they could become like almost like stale cutouts, or what I'm looking for, like too not dimensional. They don't have enough dimension or charisma. I don't know what it is. Whereas the women, there isn't this sort of blueprint of I'm going to be the Hulk Hogan, I'm going to be Stone Cold, I'm going to be the scary guy, whatever like archetype that's been successful for the men. They're forced to sort of pave their own way and niche down. Like that, maybe that's really what's working. I'm having a lot of conversations in podcasting, and I'm sure you're having similar conversations about like finding your niche in entertainment and who's my audience and this and that, where and these women are able to, like, from what what it sounds like you're telling me, is become these specific characters, and in that specificity is the appeal.
There's a term in Japanese wrestling and Japanese fighting in general. It's called fighting spirit. It's a fighting spirit where you're like, you have this fire. And in wrestling, it's called, in like American wrestling, it's called babyface fire. Like that fire, red hot babyface. And babyface means good guy or good person. But like there's like a fire and like an intensity. I guess it best translates to intensity. And these women's wrestlers, they've gotten the doors flung open for them. So you see a lot more fire. They're driven, they're hungry, and it looks like they want to win. Whereas there's a lot of complacency in the men's division. Like you said, it's very easy for them to be, I'll get my turn in a little bit. These women are like, no, it's my turn now. And you feel it. You actually feel it because they try so hard. It's amazing. It really is. I could definitely recommend you some great women's matches these days.
Okay, and the other big wrestling question I had, or at least about the general wrestling question, was about why is the current era your favorite era? And maybe you just answered that question, actually.
That's 100% part of it. That's a big half of it. But the other half is that because of AEW, there's a new company in town. It's called All Elite Wrestling. It's run by Cody Rhodes, the son of Dusty Rhodes, and Tony Khan, who's the son of the guy that owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. They own this company that they're bringing in all these old wrestlers, creating some new ones, and it's competition. Competition is very healthy. It's healthy for any business, but especially for wrestling. And so WWE has competition now, and which is making them try harder. And this new company, it's full of life. Like everyone's very excited about it. And it's a very exciting time to become a wrestling fan when you could go from one channel to the other channel and watch wrestling back and forth. Like where you're able to, just like it was in Attitude Era when you could be on watching Nitro or Raw. And when Nitro is boring, you flip to Raw. When Raw is boring, you flip to Nitro. And now you could do that again because there's another company out to compete with.
What is AEW doing specifically that you like? Is it just quality content, good wrestling, good characters, good storylines, good TV production, good? Well, like is it just a little bit of everything, or is it something that they've done that other people are not doing?
It's one thing, honestly, because everything you just said is in WWE's corner. They have better production. They have the money for more wrestlers, high quality wrestlers, best trainers, all that great stuff. What AEW has is I'm surprised. That's all I'm looking for in wrestling is surprise. And WWE has a formula. And once you've seen that formula, they keep playing it over and over again. This similar kind of story structure for a lot of their stories. Sometimes they could surprise you, but for the most part, you're going into it like I could go into any pay-per-view right now, knowing the lineup, and I could tell you who's going to win. And that's pretty easy for me. And it's not like it's just I know where they're going to go for the most part. Of course, I'm wrong sometimes, but AEW doesn't have a playbook. Not a playbook that I've seen. They're a year and a half old, so they don't really have storylines that they've done a million times. They don't really have a pattern that I can follow. They're doing everything on the fly. And so I'm shocked at a lot of the times. And that's what I'm looking for is shock. I want to be surprised.
Makes sense. I used to work in a pool and outdoor furniture warehouse when I was in college. And I'm from Long Island, as is Mick Foley.
Sure.
And he walked in one time to buy outdoor furniture.
Yeah.
And he was looking like Mick Foley. I think he had probably wrestling tights on.
He's probably wearing sweats. He wears sweats all the time, but he wears that in the ring too.
Sweats, but he had the torn flannel.
Of course he did. Hell yeah.
Like he was, yeah. And this furniture supply store was not a high-end store either. Like I'm sure he's done well, and this was in the 2000s, like at the heights or whatever of him. But he just was very unassuming. Just watching him. I think I said hello to him or I got an autograph or something. But he was Mick Foley. He seemed very Mick Foley.
He's just the coolest guy. He's the coolest guy. He did not have
teeth in his mouth.
He's missing a lot of his teeth. Two up top, two on the bottom. And the thing is, like about him, he's always been very down to earth. Even though he's got money, he's cheap as hell. He's very cheap. He's very frugal because he wants to.
I don't know.
He has a lot of kids.
Down to earth, but
that's somewhere.
How about financially wise?
Yeah, financially wise. I'll deal with that. But he's got a lot of kids too. He's got 6 kids. Wow. So he's making sure that his money lasts for all their times growing up.
Right.
That's probably why you saw him at that store at your store is because
not at the fancy store for sure.
He likes to say he pinches a penny so hard it makes Abe Lincoln scream.
Oh man.
Like saying that.
What about I guess is probably what his most famous match of all time is the Hell in a Cell.
Sure.
With the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Where the Undertaker threw Mick Foley through the top of the cage, not planning on that, but he fell through the cage about 15 feet down, I guess.
Yeah.
Hitting the mat, the ring. And you could see that it was real medical people running full speed into the ring to kind of check on him. Yeah. Not the is there a wrestling term for fake medics that run out? Is there
everything's working. So they're working medics or they're working lawyers or they're working police officers. That's the term. That must be
very confusing to someone who doesn't know.
That's the point. It's supposed to like they have a whole language. Wrestling has a whole language. It's Carney speak because wrestling derives itself from carnivals.
Right.
Where they had these gimmicks. So like fans are called marks. Fans are called marks. There's a term called kayfabe. Whenever a fan walks in or a mark walks in, you say kayfabe. And if you're two, like a good guy and a bad guy, you used to pretend that you hated each other in front of that fan, so they'd say kayfabe as almost like a trigger word, like duck. They had a whole slew of like secondhand wrestling terms. So working is just the term for when you're faking it, you're working it. So if you're a paramedic, you're a fake paramedic, you're a working paramedic.
Yeah, but this was a real thing, and he had thumbtacks all over his body and concussions in that match, and he finished the match, and it was just incredibly epic. And I mean, I've heard about some crazy matches, I guess, overseas in Japan, and I know there's been many really tough wrestlers who've been through some insane matches. Terry Funk, Cactus Jack as well.
Sure.
I've seen some bloody photos of that dude. But
Cactus Jack and Mick Foley are the same person, right?
No, not Cactus Jack. I was talking about Terry Funk.
Terry Funk. Yeah, okay, gotcha. I was nervous for a second.
Yeah. All these hardcore type wrestlers. They've had
the issue matches. I have with that Hell in a Cell match, I love the Hell in a Cell match because of what it means to me. But I used to be that guy that's like, oh, this is amazing. Let me show it to you. So if I had a girlfriend at the time or I had a friend that didn't like wrestling, I'd be like, let me show you one match. And I'd show them that match and it immediately turned them off from wrestling.
Right.
The reason being is because it's so gruesome and gross at times. And the thing is, like, I love that match for what it's meant to me, but I hate what it's shown to other people because a lot of people's only experience with wrestling has been seeing that match.
Right.
Which is pretty upsetting.
Yeah. I guess it's something it's
a spectacle.
I mean, you don't want, I was going to say special, but you don't want people to get hurt. Don't do that all the time. Save the high risk craziness, even if it's not to that degree. Hopefully it's not to that degree for the wrestler's sake, but people take risks. It's a risky thing. Yeah. I was going to ask, what about you? What about your life? What about going through like middle school and high school, just continuing on into comedy, deeper into comedy, continuing to be into wrestling? What about as like a student? Were you a good student?
No, I was a terrible student. I was not there. I was not in the game. I was not like, for the most part, I was skipping school, skipping classes. I made it through high school, didn't fall back any grades. I have like maybe 1 year of college in me and then I dropped out. I was not a student. My goals were wrestling comedy. Wrestling, I started training when I was in high school. I started training to become a wrestler when I was in high school.
To become a
pro wrestler.
Like WWE style.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I did the high school wrestling. I did high school wrestling like you would with your school. And then I was training out. Yeah. And I was training outside of that with a wrestling school in West Patterson, New Jersey. And I did that for a summer. And I couldn't afford it anymore. And then I took a 10-year hiatus and then I started doing it again in 2013. And then I had to choose between that and comedy because I was doing comedy at the same time. And they're both expensive hobbies, essentially. You're not making money when you first start out with comedy, and you're actually spending a lot of money when you first start doing wrestling because you're paying for gear, you're paying for classes, paying for transportation. There's a lot of upkeep. So I chose comedy to go with because it has a longer shelf life on my body,
Perhaps. How did everyone in your family react to you? Like, I don't know if you were like the only one in your family of your siblings like this, but like not being so into the school. Exactly.
Yeah, I was the only one. I was definitely the only one.
Your brother Jason, if I recall, he was like he wanted to do well and he was like worried about doing well.
Yeah, he got that from them. That's not from me. I'm the black sheep in the family when it comes to school and academics. I had no interest in it, had no want for it. And I think my parents, they weren't happy with it because I was kind of like a troubled kid, like I refused to go back to my old high school. I had to go to a different high school.
Where is this? So why is this all hat? Where does this come from? What's behind all this? Did your grandfather act this way? Did you have a friend? Not act this way per se, but like
Sure.
like you said, black sheep, you're different than
I
the
just
others.
I was an emotional pipe bomb. I think puberty hit me and it hit me hard, and I was just erratic. I was depressed and I was anxious, and I refused to go to school. I was angry. There was all this, nothing that would ever be constituted where like a police officer got involved. I had truant officers come to my house trying to bring me to school, and I refused. I was just gung ho. I was just so stubborn. I was so ridiculously stubborn.
Yeah,
And I just
hate
had,
teens.
and I just picked, I don't want school. I just picked that. And then I just refused to do it.
Part of me almost thinks that's great, and that's not something that everyone is going to be happy to hear. But just that the amount of conviction,
Sure.
that a person could have, even if it's for something that you disagree with, so long as you're not hurting other people.
Yeah, no one's getting hurt. I was only hurting myself. Let me hurt myself, police officer. Jeez.
I think you probably did yourself a favor by staying out of public school, but that's a different conversation.
There's a lot of things that could be said about New Jersey negatively, but they do have good public schools.
Yeah, some of the schools are quite good in places.
Yeah,
for
but
sure.
but that's that. Not Florida.
So you were
schools.
planning to be you were planning to be a wrestler. That was like what you were pursuing, like in your teens, like for the most
That
part.
was my game plan. Yeah, that was rough game plan. I didn't really have a game plan per se, but if I was going to do anything, it was going to become a wrestler or a comedian.
Yeah, well, you were telling me how 10 years later you got back into wrestling and comedy as well around that time. What happened in those other 10 years from 2003 to
From 2000 to the end of that decade, I was finishing up. I did the high school thing. I did that because I started. Yeah, I was 14 in 2004. I was 14, so a little older than I was 15. So I was 15 years old, and then the next time I did it, I was 23, I guess. So I finished high school, got out of college, and then I was just working full time. I was working at a toy store in New Jersey. And then I was just like, I need to get out of here because I want to do comedy or wrestle. And both those things require me to be in New York. So I decided I quit my job and I was going to find a job in the city. And then luckily I found this sales job called at Yodel, place called Yodel. And that's where I kind of was working while I was pursuing both comedy and wrestling.
Cool. Were you pursuing comedy even like before this? And when you say pursuing comedy, like stand up, is that like what your thought was? Were you writing like creatively? Like where were you at leading up to this? This point in your life?
Because I didn't do anything in high school and because I didn't do anything in college, be a part of drama club, be a part of an actor, like a play or something like that, or do stand up at one of those student hall stand up events. I had no idea. I was 23 and I had no idea what to do. So I joined a improv class at UCB. I was doing that. And then I just jumped steps. I heard that there was a Manhattan Neighborhood Network. It's like public access for New York. The public access station in New York, they had all these comedy programs with pretty big names on there. And me and my friend just submitted. We just submitted a show. And we ended up having a public access show in Manhattan for a year. We only have about 9 weeks. No, we have about 12 weeks worth of shows, but they kept replaying them for a year. So we were on for a year at public access in New York, right before the Chris Gethard show.
This is all broadcast. This is all TV.
This is all analog TV. Yeah, it's if you live in New York, you could watch it on Manhattan Neighborhood, or you could stream it from across the country. But yeah, that's what I was doing. That's the comedy I was doing. I wasn't doing stand up. I was doing improv, and I was writing for the show that I was producing on the public access.
Cool.
Yeah.
And tell me more about the chronology of your journey, I guess, and what was going on in New York. And you're in Los Angeles now, so you can kind of fill in those gaps for me, and I'll jump in.
Sure. As soon as we started doing that show, and as soon as we finished wrapping up those 12 episodes, I pretty much left New York and I went to Austin. I just had I just needed to do it. It's kind of like that thing with school where I had something set in my mind that before it was I didn't want to go to school. Now it's I need to get out of New York. So I decided I was going to go to Austin. And that was literally the thought of it. I told my job August, I think 15th, that I'm going to move to Austin. And September 19th, I left. And that's when I thought of it that weekend. And then I left in a month. And I stayed in Austin. I was only supposed to stay in Austin for a year. I wanted to stay there for a year, and then I was going to come to LA. My end goal was to get to LA because that's where I want to be. I want to be out of the cold weather. I wanted to be doing comedy in LA, but I ended up staying in Austin a little bit too long because I loved it there. It's the best city. It's really just a great city full of great people, and it's a great place to be a performer. Have you been to Austin before?
I have not, but I've had thoughts of maybe, I don't want to say living there, but yeah, it sounds like a cool city, music and culture and art.
And for a comedian, it's amazing because you could get up on stage every night of the week and perform. Here, it's different. There's the competition there, but also because there's competition to get on stage and to get enough time, people are rushing through their shit. They don't know how to listen. They don't know how to use silence. Like in Austin, because there's so many opportunities to get on stage, they cherish. They play with it. They're much more free and wild with it, where you see some crazy things in the Austin comedy scene that you'd never see anywhere else because they have so much opportunity there.
Dude, that's cool. I don't think I've ever actually interviewed someone who's come out of, I guess, the Austin scene. I mean, because I know a lot of comedians, most comedians seem to identify themselves. When you ask them where they're from, they tell you what city they sort of grew up doing comedy in. Is that what you say? Would you say that Austin is where you got your, because I guess you did, you were doing improv and some stuff in New York. Do you have like a comedy where you got your,
my comedy city is probably Austin. Yeah, I would say that's fair. My hometown's Jersey. I enjoy New York. I wouldn't call that my home city. My home city is Jersey, but my comedy city is Austin. Yeah.
What is it about the Austin scene? I mean, do you recall any? It might be a hard thing to describe, but like, what is it about the scene, creatively? What that makes unique? What is it? The unique aspects of either the stand up or the people there. Like, what is it? What makes Austin comedy scene?
Pretty much the fact that there's so much opportunity. There's so much comedy going on there. There's so many places to perform comedy, and not just open mics. There's full-on shows and a lot of them. And because Austin's like a live entertainment place, like you have all this music and you have all this comedy, everyone moves there with the expectation that they're going to go out every night and catch a live show. They're going to catch a live show of something. So you have all these homegrown, small time run shows that are packed because people just want to see live comedy. They don't care that there's no one they've seen. Like here in LA and New York, there's a lot of jadedness. How many times have you been invited to a comedy show? Before the pandemic, you were invited to 1 million all the time. And sometimes you go and it sucks. It just sucks and it just spoils you forever. There, nobody cares if it sucks. There's almost like a support from the audience. Not just from it's not a room full of comedians watching you perform. It's a real audience that are excited to see you. So people take bigger chances. They take bigger chances. They're more experimental because they know they're going to be up tomorrow. They know they're going to get up on stage tomorrow. So they're willing to take chances. And thus, I think the comics that come out of Austin, and I'm not talking about myself because I definitely need some work to do, but like the comics that come out of Austin, the big names, the Vanessa Gonzalez, Daniel Rugg Webb, Martha Kelly, they are amazing. They're far and beyond what I see elsewhere.
Yeah, I've seen of the people you named. I've seen Martha Kelly live.
She's amazing,
and she was amazing. She had me thinking about things and figuring out things like on the drive home, on the ride home. I was like, oh, that's what she meant by that. Like I was like thinking about her shit on a deeper level, but it also works on if I recall, on a more superficial level, like just in terms of just being hilarious and just being witty on stage is like impressive.
There's a few people I could rattle off: Vanessa Gonzalez, Daniel Rugg Webb, Devin Walker, Martin Urbano, Rob Gagnon, Like if you check out any of those, like they're great.
Yeah,
Excellent.
you answered that question and then some.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, tell me about the journey from Austin to LA and what's been going on in LA, and we'll keep the train moving along here.
Yeah, man. Well, Austin to LA I was there for too long. I said I was going to be there a year. It was 3, and pursuing a career in entertainment, it's a young man's game. You got to get in while you're young because if you so I was under 27 at the time. I was just like, I just need to get started in LA. I need to get started. And so I left, same thing. Like I thought of it. And a month later I did it. I just quit my job and I decided I was going to find a job when I came out here. I had a buddy who let me crash on her couch, for 6 months. So I had that going for me. So like I knew that I could find my way and I just did it. I left, in March of 2017 and I've been here ever since. And it's been great. Honestly, I feel like I've worked more since being in LA than I've worked in Austin. Austin, love it to death, but it's such a comforting and supportive community, that there's definitely a ceiling of what you could do in Austin. There's not that a chance for commercial success. There's not chance for that big break because you're just surrounded by your friends all the time, and which is great. And it's so much fun, but it doesn't make you hungry. I found myself getting a little lazy in Austin. Here, I have no choice. I have to be hungry. Otherwise I starve. So it's very motivating to be in this city. I've started a few shows since I've been out here. Thunder Talk Live, Loser Lee's Wrestling, Two Cute Brothers with my little brother Jason. We started a lot of that stuff during the pandemic. But yeah, I find myself to be doing more, and I feel like I'm a harder worker in LA than I was any other time in my life.
No, that's great. For sure. You got your toes in many waters, irons on many fires, lots of cool projects. What is there a slash line that you sort of describe yourself as? Are you a writer, creator, content creator, podcaster, stand up? What is sort of the best way, how you describe yourself? Obviously, we're all evolving and don't want to pigeonhole ourselves. But
I could use my political term is I call myself an entertainer. That's my political term because it's all encompassing. I'm an entertainer, but I guess I would call myself a producer. Honestly, sure. I guess that would be the best way to describe it because I'm not doing stand-up right now. So I can't call myself a stand-up. I'm doing podcasts, but I'm doing a few different types of podcasts. And I'm also me and my buddy have been producing movies for the past 3 years. So I'd say I'm a producer first, comedian second right now.
That's awesome. I mean, how do you prioritize like all this stuff and give everything the right amount of time and effort that you're working on?
This is going to probably blow up in my face one of these days, but I'm not really doing anything differently. I just feel like I should be more organized. I should be writing things down. I have somehow, specifically in COVID, and I'm not going to say this works outside of COVID, I have to work differently, but inside of COVID, I just know this is the day I do this thing. This is the day I do this thing. This is the day I do this thing. I don't write it down. I just know I have a show on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Saturday. I have 4 things that I have to do that weekend, and each one need prep for it. So the day before is the day I prep. So I just know I have a thing coming up tomorrow and I need to prep for it. So I have to do it. So
you're in a rhythm.
I found a rhythm. That's exactly it. I found a rhythm. And I don't want to jinx myself because I could really fudge it up.
Yeah, we just got to be careful not to take on too much.
It's true. In all honesty, I'm one podcast away from complete ruin. I couldn't take another thing.
I understand that for sure. Tell me about the various projects you're working on. We can kind of dig in on what's going on.
Well, my buddy Moet and I, we've been making films since 2017, and we've made 2 feature films. We have a production company called Garbage Casual, and so we're working on shopping around these films right now, seeing if we could get it someplace. From that, me and him have created a wrestling podcast called Loser Lee's Wrestling. which we review AEW Dynamite. So AEW, that company I was telling you about, they have a show called Dynamite on TNT, and we review that. And then on Saturdays, we give the news of the week. We talk wrestling news. So that's my wrestling podcast, and Garbage Casual is my film thing. Then Jason and I, my little brother Jason and I, we have a show called Two Cute Brothers. Two Cute Brothers. We're just two brothers being too cute. We're two brothers just trying our best to be cute. And
you guys don't have to try.
Well, we do. We are not inherently cute.
Oh, I see. That's
Adam.
the point.
We are not inherently cute. I am not a cute guy. And Jason, with that facial hair, is not cute. He's lost all cuteness with that facial hair. It's disappointing.
I think, I don't know. You guys might be cute coming from.
No, but together as brothers inherently are cute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, on your own, you're not that cute.
On our own,
right.
But together, being brothers that are doing something together and being nice to each other, that's cute.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's
very cute. And so that's on Twitch, Pack Theater Twitch right now. And then I guess I have one more podcast, and that's if you like dead celebrity gossip, gossip on all your favorite dead celebrities. I have a show called Lifestyles of the Rich and Dead. Lifestyles.
Wait a minute. Is that like new? You're getting new information about or sharing
about dead people? This just launched this past week. This show just launched. We have 3 episodes out. We take a dead celebrity and then we find out all the gossip and dirt we can find on that celebrity. And then we just talk about it because you know what? They've written their book. They're done. I think it's ruder to talk about living people while they're alive than to talk about dead people who are just like, oh, they lived all their things. So we've covered Alex Trebek, Margaret Thatcher, former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, Lucy Ball. Those are the 3 that are available right now. And now we also have some in the works: Edgar Allan Poe, William Shakespeare, Mother Teresa, Sean Connery. We really go through the gamut of dead celebrities.
And you dig up the dirt on all these people.
We're digging dirt.
Oh, I heard some things about that Mother Teresa. I might have to check that out.
She's the worst one of them all.
Yeah. Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is a service to society, because our leaders can sometimes become these cult of personalities, and we forget the human side of things. What you're doing sounded initially terrible, though. I will say that, but not that it won't have an audience.
Sure. That's morally reprehensible, is what you're saying.
Perhaps, yes. But then the way you explained it, I was like, oh, maybe that should make sense.
But we also don't go in with the intent of burying or attacking them. The burying, pardon the pun. We don't go in with the attacking them. For instance, like Alex Trebek, we were completely elated to find out he's just a good guy. He's just a good guy.
Oh, sometimes you don't find it. Sometimes you don't really find it.
Yeah, Alex Trebek is a good guy. Lucille Ball's great. Margaret Thatcher's a problem, but we already knew that. Mother Teresa is pretty bad, comes to think of it. She's not she didn't realize it, though. She didn't realize it.
Why not only focus on people who have, I guess, either lesser known transgressions or something like that? Like Alex Trebek sounds like a saint. Why talk about him? I guess just to give him some.
We try to keep it as random as possible, and we try to cover the entire gamut. We have William Shakespeare and Beethoven. We're gonna have Alex Trebek, and then we're gonna do a sports legend, or we're gonna do an author.
99.999% of all people who ever existed on this planet are dead. You have so many options.
Yeah, we've got a lot of places to go. And we're very excited for it. Next week's episode is Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe's next week.
Yeah, he wrote poems.
Hell yeah.
Kind of a moody guy.
Very moody.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to hang out with him.
No, he's
tear him a new one. It's fine with me. What else did we cover your project? Did we cover anything else you're working on? We could talk LA. We could talk any Mick Foley stuff. We
covered all my projects, but I'm willing to talk about anything.
Yeah. What would you? Did you say you ever met Mick Foley?
Yeah. I met Mick Foley 2 times. Not like, I won't call it meet.
Saw in person,
shook his hand.
Gotcha.
Said my name. He said his, because I'm just like, Red Jefferson. He's like Mick Foley. Like I know Mick.
One of those.
I know Mick. And I met him at a book signing once, and he was very sweet. I would like to meet him again. I'd love to meet that guy. I'd love to hang out with that guy for an afternoon. That's my goal. That is a goal of mine, is to be able to interact with Mick Foley on a personal level.
And what would that afternoon look like? You grabbing a drink? Are you guys going to wrestle? Or are you guys going to go to a show?
We are going to go to a diner. We're going to go to a diner and we're going to get coffee and hash browns and eggs. We're going to just have a great meal at a Long Island diner, and that's what it's going to be.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
I don't want to drink with him. He doesn't drink. He's not a drinker.
I thought I remember like
because he's so pure. He's so pure of soul, Adam. He doesn't need to drink. He's high off life.
Is that the reason?
He's high off life. He's so high off life. Also, his concussions won't allow him to drink anymore.
Right. I thought if there was either a medical reason or he used to indulge. I don't recall.
No, he's never been a drinker. He's never been a drinker, but he definitely can't now.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
No, he's a cool dude. What would you talk to him about? What would you I mean,
not about maybe I'd talk about today's wrestling with him. I'd love to talk about today's wrestling and what he likes and what he doesn't. I know a little bit from interviews, but I'd really like to get in there with him. I wouldn't talk about his old stuff because he's probably dead tired of it. He's so tired of it. I'd probably talk about today's stuff and maybe comedy.
You do good. You'd go where the conversation goes. You wouldn't go in. It doesn't sound like you'd go in with any sort of agenda.
Should I try to expose him for the liar he really is, or something like that?
I was gonna say, like, in terms of like, I don't know, like trying to like work with the dude or like fucking get something at him or something.
No, I have no intent of ever having a project with Mick Foley. I just want to eat lunch with him. That's really all I want.
Yeah. No, maybe that should be the project. Lunch with Mick.
Oh
Mick
my
Foley.
God, that's the project. Damn it, Adam. Now it's going to be a project. Oh shit.
Well, along those lines, I was going to ask, how about one more for you? Where do might you imagine yourself in, I guess, COVID and lockdowns and all this craziness in 2020 and 21 aside, where might you imagine yourself professionally in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? You seem like a type of guy who's pretty open to different opportunities and ideas and jumps on a good one that you like when you see it. But what do you see in the future?
5 years. 5 years. I'm producing. I'm making movies. I'm making the movies that I want to make, and I'm being paid for it. I'll be a performer in those movies as well. I'm going to be a writer for those movies. My buddy Moet is probably going to be the director for those movies. So I plan on me and him having kind of like that kind of trajectory. I plan on Two Cute Brothers still going on. That's the easiest show in the world to keep going forever, honestly, because it requires very little forethought, and we're brothers, so it's not like we'll lose contact. So it's really like,
dude, that's change his number on you and shit.
No, but it's the beauty of that show is that it could be the longest running show in history. Like in history, it has the potential to, because we started it last year. It's almost a year old. It's in April, it'll be a year old. So it has the potential to be 50 years old, 60 years old. If we just do it every Tuesday at 7, that would be very funny. And I think I should do that.
Yeah. How many episodes are you away from the big 30,000?
30,000. Well, I have to do the math. We were somewhere in the 52 range in April.
Yeah. Well, you're on your way. Cool,
yeah,
man. I look forward to it, to seeing everything and where your journey takes you. I definitely appreciate your time. It's been fun talking wrestling and Mick Foley and Austin. I need to get there. I've enjoyed it. Thank you, man.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you know what? Tell people where they can find and follow you before I forget.
Oh, yeah. Find Red_Jefferson on Instagram, Red Jefferson on Twitter, Loserly's Wrestling, YouTube, podcasts, Lifestyles of the Rich and Dead on podcasts, and Two Cute Brothers on Twitch and on Instagram. Two Cute Brothers.
You got it.
That's two TOO. Two cute TOO. Cute Brothers.
TOO. Red, and it's Red Jefferson with 2 D's.
With 2 D's. 2 D's. Yeah. Second D silent.
Oh, you can. Okay, you got it. Talk soon, man. Later. So there you have it. My conversation with Red Jefferson. That was fun. I again thank him for his time. He likes fat wrestlers the way I like the occasional shorter basketball player. But anyway, For everything about the show, of course, head to peoplewelovepodcast.com, at People We Love Podcast on Instagram, and I am at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter. And I also have another podcast called the Unofficial Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, where I talk all about my favorite band, the 12-piece rock, soul, blues, and blues rock band. They really transcend genres in many ways, but they feature a lead singer and guitar player, Susan Tedeschi, and her husband, lead guitar player, and the best slide guitar player around, Derek Trucks. Plus horns and 2 drummers and backup singers and keyboards and more. I do solo episodes about topics and talk to musicians, journalists, photographers, fans, and anyone who really loves the band. Follow at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast, TEDESCHI Trucks Podcast on Instagram. That's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. And there's a Linktree link to listen in the profile of that on that page. And again, at People We Love Podcast on Instagram, at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter. And I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks as always. And let's talk soon. Peace.